test.
Oh, okay.
One more time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One more time. Welcome to Court Reporter Confidential.
A place to talk about all things court reporting, including industry news, technology, best practices, and personal experiences from professionals in the field.
Hey guys, I'm Isaiah Leslie. I'm one of the co-founders at Regal Court Reporting. My background is in sales and marketing, and I do business development for Regal.
And I'm Stephanie Leslie. I'm a certified court reporter in the state of California, and we founded Regal Court Reporting together back in 2007. It was 2007, right?
It was 2007.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was.
It's been a minute.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
We were working out of our house back then, which is, it's kind of crazy to think about working out of a bedroom of a home, but it was quite an experience.
Yeah, it was the right start for us. We were starting off very slowly, organically.
Yeah.
In fact, when we moved recently, I found our original notebook where I put our first 5 jobs in, 10 jobs in.
That's right.
We didn't even have software yet to input anything. It was crazy.
It was super old school. Pencil and pen and paper. Yeah, it was like a journal entry kind of thing. It was really, really old school.
I'm going to save that forever. That
Yes,
was really cool.
absolutely. We should frame it. The picture. Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
So we started it because really out of desperation. I quit my job and I didn't know what else to do other than maybe try our luck starting our own agency. For those who may not know, I was in the financial field prior to starting at Regal, and in 2007, before the crash, I had no idea the crash was going to come. I'd like to say I had some prescient knowledge that, this is going to be a bad place to be in, but I just didn't like what I was doing. And so I quit. And I think you said, what are you going to do? What are we going to do?
You're like, let's do it what I'm doing, because my phone was ringing off the hook. There was a great need. I already had a handful of clients, like 5 clients that were going to follow me wherever I went. And so we just started with our 5 clients. And the beauty of it was that that reporters are self-employed, right? We're independent contractors. So I could still work for other people while we serviced our own clients. So that was a nice transition. We didn't have to jump, completely jobless. So that was our saving grace, truly.
Absolutely, yeah. Also, another pro tip: don't buy a house right before you quit your job, because that was a very difficult situation too. So I think we
bought a house, had a baby, and started Regal within
2 years of all those things happening.
Yeah. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah, we were like the poster children of what not to do when starting a business, but luckily it all worked out. I think we're pretty blessed.
Very, very.
But yeah, having that other income was a huge benefit for us, so that I could actually develop clients in a more productive and fruitful way, not being desperate. I mean, I was pretty desperate, but but we didn't have to rely on it 100%. And I think you had a mentor too, right? That really helped.
I did. I wouldn't be nothing without her. Yeah. Sadly, I've lost track of her, but yeah, she taught me everything I knew. And so I think she had owned her own agency before. And so
That's
she
right.
kind of gave us some tips and how to get started and things to look out for, and just all the back end formalities that we had no idea what we were doing. So that was really, really helpful.
Yeah, that was very helpful for formatting and how to set up transcripts. I mean, we were doing this. We had our own little print shop in the bedroom that I shared where I was doing scheduling. And then we hired a couple of people who also worked out of our house, which was crazy.
But we already knew them. They were family members,
Right.
friends. Yeah.
Right. So that wasn't as awkward as it could be.
Yeah. In fact, one was my sister-in-law.
That's right.
And friend. And I have a picture of her holding my baby, my newborn, on her chest while doing calendar. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Wow, that's a long
That's
time.
all the worlds colliding.
Yeah, that's weird.
I think I was recovering from having him, and I was laying on the couch, and she's holding him. And
The break room was the kitchen. I mean, it was just really, it's kind of silly.
Yeah.
But that worked for a while. I do remember the first time, I don't know if you remember the first time you felt like you had a business.
when we could, I don't know, for me, it was when we could get away.
Yes.
Right? Is that your moment?
Yeah. Do you know which trip that was?
No.
You were, actually, I think you were pregnant with Carson.
All that fast?
Yeah.
Only a year in? Okay.
No, 2 years in. It was Cancun.
Ah,
Or at least that's what I
right.
remember.
That's right. Our
Yeah.
baby moon.
Yeah.
Yes.
because we had somebody at the office who was scheduling and taking everything for us, and
we could actually get away. Yeah.
That was
a big
2
deal.
years in. Yeah. Now, of course, it was an all-inclusive that we didn't have to pay a lot to go to, because I don't think we could have afforded it on our own at that point yet. But
yeah,
still, it was nice.
So how do you think we survived? There are a couple of key moments, in my opinion, but how do you think we started it? Like, because, when you read any book about starting a new business, they talk about you have to have capital, right, to get started.
Yep. Yeah.
Do you remember we had a chunk that we had saved up?
Yeah, we had, I think we saved some, and then we had a family and friends loan from.
I think we only did that after a while when we ran out of our own.
Sure.
But I remember we lived off credit cards for.
Oh yeah, we did the credit card
bit,
game for a while.
It's a risky game, but yeah.
Yeah. Again, we by the skin of our teeth. Is that how you say skin of? I was going to say seat of our pants. That was the one. We made it, and we got through those situations. But there were a couple times that were dicey where it was like, do we pay our mortgage or do we pay our reporters? And we paid our reporters, but it was a near thing. The Great Recession was happening right as we were growing our business. So the mortgage situation was crazy. We had this weird mortgage situation where anyway, all of that ended up working itself out, but it was a lot of near misses. And that's one of the things I think, people looking back, like I look at businesses today, maybe, more successful than ours or whatever. And you think, man, they must have had it like so dialed in. But if they're anything like ours, there's a lot of near misses where it could have gone the other way.
Yeah. Yeah. We certainly didn't have a polished, foolproof plan that we sat down and made. We just sort of jumped in and figured it out.
Yeah.
Which there are a lot of benefits to that, I think.
Right.
That we grew slowly and organically, which I think is a good thing in a lot of ways. We didn't get too big too fast.
Right.
But then again, it was slow. So there were, there's downsides to that as well. But
yeah. My business plans and all of those things they tell you in maybe college or, business school, I don't know if we've ever done an official business plan or strategic planning.
Sort of, yeah.
This year was like our first real strategic planning session, I think, and that was because of some very important team members that we have that got us there. What do you think when we started? Do you think we'd be able to start it over again today?
With the knowledge and everything we have now?
Well, yeah. But if we had started for the first time in today's climate, do you think, is there anything different about when we started versus?
I think we would need so much more capital because the prices have gone up and reporter rates have gone up. And so I don't know. I don't know if that's a better thing or it'd be more of a dangerous game. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly with the knowledge we have now, it would have been a lot easier.
Yes, yes, it would, for sure.
You can't get that unless you help run an agency prior or, there's just certain things I think you just have to learn as you go.
Yeah.
Do you remember how we got our first 5 clients?
Well, that was all you.
Yeah. Just from me being in the field and them being opposing counsels on depots that I had taken and they requested me or liked me or whatever. So yeah, that was cool. I didn't intentionally do it, but I was, of course, always doing my best and trying to, I think I did have sort of an entrepreneur or like owner mentality a little bit more than maybe some from the get-go, where I just wanted to provide like ultimate customer service all the time. I just wanted to be my best. And so I guess that had its benefits.
I think you growing up in an entrepreneurial environment with your parents owning a business, that came easier to you. It was a lot easier to sell you on starting it than probably somebody who wanted security with a W-2 and all that. But
I didn't see it as much of a risky proposition because I've only seen a successful one. My parents owned a plumbing company, and I mean, they didn't start it. My grandpa did, but still, just having that in the business or having that in the family just seemed natural, I guess.
Right. So that was very helpful, having the 5 clients to start, to build that book of business. And then from there, it was just hard work, building relationships.
We'll talk about our roles. Do you want to?
Right, yeah. So,
why have we not killed each other yet?
Exactly. So the reason this works, the reason this business works, at least for us, why a husband and wife duo can do so well in this business, at least my experience has been because we're not in front of each other every day. I come to the office or I'm out in the field and I'm meeting with clients. My kids seem to think all I do is go out to lunch with people, but
It's kind of true.
It's kind of true. Yeah. Lawyers don't like to take breaks in the middle of the day, so you got to catch them before work or in the middle of the day or after work. But it was me going out doing that or being in the office, and then you working from the house.
Or out taking depositions.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I guess being complimentary from the start, right? Like knowing that you run the business, you're this, CEO, CFO, and handle all so managing of the reporters and.
Speaking of that, do you remember how long it took me to really own the leadership part of this? You were way more natural at it,
right.
and you really ran the business for a long time.
Yeah.
And now I would say we're more equal partners.
Yeah.
But I was sort of the technician or the boots on the ground doing the work in the trenches.
That's right.
And wasn't working on the business. I was working in the business. So in a way, I didn't really take ownership of that. I think one of the things that, so my role has been not only taking depositions, but also mentoring reporters along the way, students. I did not have an intention of that being beneficial for our business, but it really has, because I've built relationships and tried to pay it forward like my mentor did for me.
Right.
And it has come back and benefited us quite a bit. But in that role of being, at first I had only been reporting a few years and I was mentoring people, but I still felt like I was new. But over time, building up experiences and now being a leader in DRA, our association, I think that's really helped me kind of take ownership of that, right?
I couldn't agree more. I think the maturity and development of you as a partner in life and in business has been remarkable to see, because you were just young when we got started. We were both young,
I
but
was a baby.
You're like, what, 25, 26?
When what?
When we started the agency?
Oh, you had 25?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only a couple years out in the field
24.
prior to that. So, but yeah, it is one of the things I think it's worked really well for us is that we've been able to, there's no pride of place, like needing to be number one or like it's all because of me or because of you. It's 100% us. And at some points in the growth of the business, there have been things that I've been more in the front on, right? Leading on or building up, and then it's switched. In the beginning, I think I was doing a lot more on the biz dev side and just kind of managing it. It was a lot easier to manage when it was only 2 or 3 people. But the last, 4 or 5 years, you've definitely taken the lead in so many ways, and really it's been your agency, and I've been happy to see that. My role is just more strictly in the biz dev field, and
which is what you love.
Which is what I love anyway.
Yeah.
But because
going out to lunch, right?
Right. And I do work with the departments,
I know.
but I know what you mean. Yeah, and that is my passion. Yeah. But because we've been able to defer to each other, we've been able to grow the business so much more. You're really a thought leader in this industry. I know you won't say it, I'll say it, but it's true.
It's weird.
You're an expert. You get called to Sacramento to speak in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee about technology in the field. You're leading from a career standpoint. You're getting laws changed in the state to allow voice writing to be, we can talk more about that later, but I just feel like you've really taken a leadership role in this company and made our agency really the education, the teaching agency, and a leader in the family-owned court reporter market.
Yeah. I think it's a great circle of benefit, like an upward spiral, because we do these things because a lot of them just because we want to, right? Because I feel like it's good for our industry to keep it going and to protect our reporters by doing all these things, right? Legislatively or whatever. But then it also hopefully is helping us because it's putting us on the map. It's, getting our name out there.
Sure.
And maybe instilling some trust among reporters that we've got their back.
It's because we've got each other's back.
Oh,
right,
yes.
Right. I think, there's trust there between us, and then just what we do for each other. I'm 100% in on whatever you're going to do because we have to do this together, right? We're in this together.
One of the side benefits has been that you don't have a 9-to-5 job.
Right.
Like I have colleagues that run their agency by themselves, and I don't know how they do that. And they're out in the field working, and then trying to manage calendar, and it's crazy. And
Right.
so I don't envy that at all. So it's really nice that we can tag team, and that, everyone says, how do you do it with kids? How do you do it with your family? Like work-life balance. And it's truly because you have the flexibility to be the backup to, our daughter gets sick in school and I'm out on a job in Burbank. I mean, I can't do much about that. So you come to the rescue, or vice versa. So that has really been a beneficial, that all our eggs are in that basket of covering when we need to. Yeah.
It's really neat to be able to adapt. I didn't know that I would be really open to that. And I find that to be a benefit now, that I could be a dad much more in ways than I thought I would be when I started my career. A lot of guys probably growing up of a certain generation and older, I think nowadays culture is much more accepting of like co-parenting, or in the sense that 50-50 on chores around the house or raising kids, excuse me. But, I'm a Gen X kid, and I grew up with a boomer influence, right? That the husband is the provider, if not the only provider, the main one, and he's out, he's gone, like 9 to 5, 8 to whatever. And that's not a knock on that. That was just the way they did it back then. But so I thought that's what I was going to have to do. And it turns out I don't have to do that. At least being a business owner has given me the freedom that you talked about. And I actually like hanging out with my kids and picking them up, and doing those things in the middle of the day, which is a blessing, and not everybody can do it. So, to your point, that's the only way we make this work as a family unit and as a business, is the ability to tag team and pass the baton.
Yeah. So has it always been easy?
No. No. There's been challenges. Even now, there's challenges we face, and those challenges we can talk about maybe in other podcast episodes. But initially, the biggest challenge, I think, from my side of the equation, was cash flow. There were so many times, we already talked about some of those, where we were, do we pay our mortgage or do we pay our reporters? So payroll was a big thing. Getting clients to pay us, it's still not a thing we figured out fully how to do that quickly, but we had no real system in place to stop providing services if a client hadn't paid us in a while. And we lost, I think we lost $10,000. And when we were first starting out, on a client who ended up getting in major trouble for some other reasons, which we can talk about in another podcast too. But we got burned. That's right. Yeah. Trust fund money mixing, not a good idea. Yes. Or not trust money, not trust fund, but mixing the trust money. Anyway, we had some serious issues with clients not paying early on, and that's because I didn't know how to follow up properly, how to keep a good accounting of things.
Well, and how to vet a client too. We were just desperate for any business, and so they probably were blacklisted at every other agency, and we were like, sure, we'll take your business because we just need work. And we should have been a little more choosy. And now, but we didn't have the luxury then, Right. Now we do.
There were a lot of those catch-22s when, like, we were first starting out. We needed a lot of credit, right? We needed banks that were willing to give us potentially, lines of credit or a loan, and nobody would do that because we didn't have any history of, and we were coming out of the Great Recession, so everybody was pretty tight on giving financing. So financing, cash flow was a big challenge early on. Getting clients to pay on time, even today, it's not always easy, but that was a big one for me.
Yeah. One of you were just talking about today, one of the difficulties that I don't know that anybody talks about really, or maybe they do, but we're going to. So is that with the reporter shortage or difficulty finding coverage or whatever you want to call it, I'm sort of the backup. Not sort of, I am the backup. And so I love that we have that luxury, but at the same time, I am on I have to pivot on a dime and like be ready to drive to wherever. And that is a challenge with our family. And that's a sacrifice that I've had to make, which is kind of a bummer. And after hours too, not only during business hours and covering things, but we are the after hours line. If somebody, an attorney forgot to schedule a reporter tomorrow, and then we answer the phone during dinner, and that's kind of a bummer. You're
right. There's never really an off time,
Yeah.
Maybe when we go on vacation to a certain extent, but even then we're getting the emails, we're getting the texts or the Slack messages, and you just can't really, which, that's what you sign up for, right? The buck stops with me, with you. But yeah, there's never a fully off time. Like as a W-2 employee, you can say I'm out, or even as an independent contractor reporter, it's like, no, I'm going on vacation. I'll talk to you when I get back, which is fine. You know, there's different challenges in different places. And when you own a business, at least our agency, there's never a time where you're not on call.
Right. And, I get asked quite a bit from reporters like, oh, do you recommend starting your own agency? Wouldn't that be great? And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, you get to pick. You get to say, no, I don't want to work tomorrow, or no, I don't want to drive to Lancaster tomorrow, which is 2 hours away, So that's a real benefit too. So you have to weigh, am I ready to give that up? And just be the person that's like, well, I got to do whatever I need to do for my clients.
Yeah. It's a big part of it. I think too, there's other challenges that I'm trying to remember. It's funny now, you only think about the most recent ones because the ones in the past seem, when you figure it out, it's great. So I think a challenge initially was knowing when to hire people, because there's always, part of related to cash flow is, okay, well, if I bring somebody else on, it gives me more time to get new clients, but then we need to make sure we have enough money to pay these new people. And that's always a struggle. At least I hear from other people too. Like, when do you do it? How do you know it's the right time? Mm-hmm. Did you know?
Well, and along with that, the growing, whenever you get busier and grow, it's growing pains. It really, you feel it because now you're having to fork out all this money. Like if we get busier with depots all of a sudden. And so kind of similar, like at what point do you pull the trigger and make that leap? And same with our office spaces too. We've always been really conservative about not jumping into too fancy of a place, of a 5-year commitment. And then, what if something changes and we get smaller for some reason? So there's all those big decisions of when to.
Yeah, that was a challenge too. Yeah. I recall
we were in some pretty sketchy places.
We were. I mean, people, again, you look at where a company is today versus where they started out. We started out in our house, right? As we already talked about, we had 2-3 employees there. And then our next move up was actually to sublease in a law firm office in Orange, right by Anaheim Angel Stadium. Mm-hmm. And that got too small real fast because we had so the way that worked, the attorney had his office. We had the lobby and one other room, which doubled as which was the production room and the calendar room. And then my office was the lobby. So people walk in there and they probably thought I was the secretary, and I
the receptionist
kind of was. And then we had a video production person who shared the lobby with me, and his desk was on, I kid you not, a dinner tray. And he put his laptop up, and I'd look at him and he'd look at me. And that's what we did for a while. Yeah, in hindsight. And then we moved into our own space. And that was it was in a rough part of town.
And they had a drug rehab place downstairs.
So there was a lot of loud voices, a lot of cigarette smoking going on. Our employees got hit up once or twice for cigarettes. Oh. Yeah, that was, and some other just nasty things in general happening around there. So that was office number 2, 3, I guess, if you count our house. And then we moved to a nicer place, which I didn't have a problem with the facility, but the building itself was a little bit.
Yeah.
It was too hot in the summer and too cold in the winter. And then we finally moved here. So that's like 4 or 5 offices. But anyway, this is a great place. But we had some rough spots starting out. But you get what you can afford.
Yes. And you don't want to bite off more than you can chew.
Right. We were very conservative. So that was another thing where it's like challenging. And in our industry, first impressions matter. A lot of our clients are like nicer places. So, you have to make these calculations in your head. What can you afford? What can you provide?
Well, when we were out of the house, we had a ghost office, which was a conference center, and our mail would go to this fancy building.
That's right.
We could use the conference rooms in a pinch. But then people would show up and be like, where are they?
Right.
We were in our house.
That's true. We had our virtual office when we had the house.
We had to explain that away a couple times.
Yeah. But if you provide good service, and in that sense, we did. So the aesthetics maybe weren't the best in some places, but the service certainly was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I figured if attorneys can do that,
right.
we can.
I think recently there's been a lot of national competition that's gobbled up a lot of our regional competitors.
Yes. But that was another big decision because we have been offered to, what is the
word?
Courted, yes.
Several times.
from big boxes. And, first of all, we're not ready to sell. But even if we were, we had to decide, is that the path we want to go, you know? And what's best for our industry? What's best for us individually? Do those two align? So it is tricky because do we want to hold out and, see where the industry goes and be the last man standing maybe of reporter owned? And ultimately that's what we have decided and we're committed to. So we'll see where the industry goes from here on. Yeah, we can have a whole other episode about the future of
I think that's reporting. A good podcast, going corporate versus, keeping true to the court reporting industry.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge, but I think it's also an opportunity because as these big national chains buy up more and more regional agencies, the only alternative, there's few and far between.
Yep.
And we're pretty young. I mean,
to
the Gen Z audience out there, we might seem really old, but being where we are in our 40-ish age range, 40-something, we got plenty of years left in this, and I think we're just getting started in terms of what we can do.
Yeah.
So those challenges.
It is exciting to think about.
Yeah.
That there's less competition in a way.
Right.
At least in our lane.
Right. And there's other technology we'll talk about too. I mean, there's the AI things, speech to text and some of the other challenges. But all those, again, at the end of the day, are challenges we can face. And how do you think the industry's changed since you got started as a reporter?
Well, I know. So I can speak from being a reporter for another agency, multiple agencies. There was a lot more loyalty. There were what we called staff reporters. And so typically you would work primarily for one firm and maybe branch out to others. And so in a way that was really, really helpful. It had its downsides like everything. But the other thing which has really changed is how reporters get jobs. We used to get phone calls, individual phone calls. Hey, can you take this job tomorrow? Where now it's just a big email blast or it's on Facebook and you just kind of take what you can get. And so it's less personal, I would say, and less personalized and customized. And so, I don't know. It is what it is. What do you think about that?
No, I think that's right. And when we first got started as an agency ourselves, we had staff reporters for a while, which was great. I think people like consistency, even on freelancers. I think there was that expectation that loyalty was a good thing.
Right.
Things have changed with the shortage now. It's much less about that, and certainly there's still loyalty out there. I think that's still a big thing, but it's definitely changed. The dynamics of where you go, if you go freelance or if you go court, I think that's probably a little bit different now too. Or
right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Now there's bonuses and meaning for even just to be hired on as an official. Yeah, there's a lot of tempting incentives.
Right.
But I do wish that people would think a little more long-term sometimes and think about the good of our industry as a whole, and not just as a goodwill offering, but for their longevity too, you know? Like if we want our career to be around for 50 more years, sometimes we need to make a sacrifice here and there and do what's best long-term. So.
Sure. Well, and that gets into another big difference from, you mentioned having to make communication via phone or whatever. Talk about depositions themselves in terms of everything was in person.
Oh, right.
When you started.
Right. A lot more commuting. Remote was really an answered prayer in a lot of ways because we were at the peak of what felt like a shortage. And so to try to get somebody into West LA, which, is a multi-hour drive for a doctor depot that might last 45 minutes on a Friday afternoon was just a lot to ask of someone. So now even the attorneys are like, well, I don't want to do that. So a lot of times it's remote still. It's the majority, but we do need folks to be willing to do both. And
right. I mean, it's a blessing. If you're coming up now, there's never been a better opportunity, number one, to become a reporter because all the flexibility, but the remote jobs are great. You don't have to travel as much.
Although I have to say our power went out this morning at our house a couple of times, and I thought, oh boy, I'm so glad I'm not on a Zoom job today. I was on one yesterday. And that's the trick. The technology is a lot more is tenable the right word? Like very, I don't know. It's touch and go and very, you're at its mercy a lot
That's
more.
right. Yeah.
So we talked about big boxes and, whether we're willing to sell out or not to them. What is our plan for the future? What do you have in mind for?
Well, it was a good question we had to look at just recently when there was an opportunity to merge with another company. We looked at the bigger picture and we realized what we had done really well previously for growth. First of all, there's organic growth within our own, company. We have a salesperson who's fantastic and it's going to really help us. But we acquired 2 other agencies before we got to this point a couple years ago, and they were very similar to ours. They were family-owned court reporting agencies with the same customer care philosophy. There was employees with one of those agencies, and they've become 2 of our best employees as part of the Regal team now. So the answer for growth is not to be acquired, but to try to acquire other like-minded agencies like ours from agency owners who also feel like us. They don't want to sell out to the big corporate ones and maybe have the brand and the quality tarnished by having a company run by VC capital folks or people who aren't court reporters or understand or care about it. Having those people and finding them in the state of California and saying maybe we should work together, So that's our growth plans are to find like-minded agency owners and merge with them, and preserve and carry on the court reporter profession into the future, which I guess you can talk a little bit about that from, what are we doing from an education standpoint and what are we doing from an advocacy standpoint for the profession?
Yeah. We all know the interest of big boxes is to make money like every business, and that's not wrong. But sometimes the interests are not aligned with doing what's right by the reporters. So we're committed to that. And one of the things that everybody knows is creeping in is digital recording. And the most important thing I think I'm doing at this moment is, as president of the California Deposition Reporters Association, is advocating for our legislation, continuing the protection of court reporters, because I had no idea until I got into this role how vulnerable our industry is in half the states in this country, because they do not have a license requirement. They don't even have an association anymore. And they're just at the mercy of whatever the courts decide to do, whatever the attorneys decide to do, and there's no protection. And so in California, we are, as in most things legislatively and politically, we're really kind of cutting edge. And so, like, for example, we had AB5 issues, which means independent contractor versus employee, where that came down the pike, and it was dangerous to us. We thought we were all going to have to become employees, and luckily we found a way around that. And so now the whole country is dealing with that through the PRO Act. And so they're all looking to California for guidance, like, how did you guys get around this? What did you do? So in similar ways, we're trying to be that for the AI threats, the digital recording. So we've gotten a couple of really great bills passed, one of which is title protection. So digitals cannot call themselves court reporters. They can't call themselves digital reporters at all. And so without having licensure and a board, and without having advocates in the associations and support in that way, there's no way we can have any protections. So, and so we're fighting AI threats. We're have some stuff in the works right now that I can't disclose, but yeah, really, really good stuff for our whole industry.
Voice writers.
Oh yeah, that was a huge thing. So a lot of states already utilize voice writers since World War II. It's nothing new, but California just adopted that last year, almost 2 years ago. So they're all getting through school now, and there's a huge number of new licensees coming out of school, and that has been a great solution to our shortage issues. So.
And maybe explain what is voice writing and why that's a solution for the shortage of reporters.
Yeah. So with steno machines, we have to learn a whole new language, and we start off having 12 weeks entirely devoted to learning this new language, and we have to learn how to type in code and on a machine, and then we start at 40 words a minute and have to get all the way up to 200 or 225, whereas a voice writer uses a mask, and they talk in code, but they're talking in English words, so they don't have to learn a whole new language. And so the beauty of that is they can start at 140 words a minute, and they can much more quickly get to 200 or 225. And so they're having great success rates with getting out of school faster and with passing the tests faster. So it's providing a solution for the courts that are itching to put in technology to replace us, that for the attorneys who are itching for that. So
right.
It's turned out to be a wonderful solution.
And that's not just your efforts, obviously. There's a lot of people that are pushing for that as an alternative solution, because at the end of the day, human stenographers, whether they write using a machine or they use a mask, it's the same theory, it's the same principle, it's the same licensure and responsibility as the keeper of that record.
There's someone responsible, and their license is on the line. Right. Absolutely.
So it creates a standard that's better than what you get with a software program, where the chain of custody or who's responsible when things screw up is ultimately not decided, and could be overseas. It could be another company in another place. So it continues that gold standard of all the different aspects of quality and care for the record and all of that.
Right.
So,
and thanks to our laws in place right now that we're protecting so carefully, only a licensed court reporter's transcript is automatically admissible in court. Right. So they can stipulate to use something else, some other alternative, but there could be objections to it, and it could be not admitted, and so it's a dangerous game for them. So it behooves them to use us. And
I understand the concern about there needs to be a record taken, right? So what do you do when there's a lack of people? So we're trying to come up with a solution that I think is one that's going to be, first of all, meet the need, but also give them the quality that they need. Because I think right now people are maybe open to this idea of speech to text or other things because it's the only thing available, but it's not a great alternative. And if they had a better alternative, I would think they'd be more happy with the better record.
Right.
So they're settling for this if we could just provide better voice writers.
Right. Well, and speaking of voice writers, that was not adopted very automatically. I don't know how to say it, but there was a lot of resistance, and still is a little bit, but I think it's becoming more accepted. And I'm proud to say that I think, are the first agency, if not one of the very first, to hire voice writers and be on board with it and supportive of them, and really try to start educating our clients about that. And I think I saw the importance of it, maybe just because of my role and seeing the benefit of it from the start. But I think it's everyone's coming around, so I'm excited.
Well, it's a great case in point about adapting to challenges in the industry and finding a solution that we think puts both the client at top of mind, while also giving recognition to the work that we do, that it's important that it's done with a stenographer. So it's a great adaptation. I think it's going to catch on. We already see numbers in schools going up for new students, and then those that are passing. So,
and this was brought to my attention not too long ago that before machine writers, we think we're the original. Before machine writers, there were pen writers. They would write by hand. I forget what it's called. The shorthand. I'm drawing a blank. It's a man's name. But anyway, they were pen writers in court. And when machines came along, they did not want that. They were like, this is going to, they wanted to keep the status quo. And so I understand, we don't like change generally as people, but sometimes it is needed to make sure that there's an adequate solution given. Yeah.
As we kind of wrap this up now, any final thoughts on, if somebody's listening, if they want to get started, recommendations for them, or
started with their own agency? Is that what you're thinking? Yeah. I mean, I think we've adequately shown the benefits of it, or maybe not so much that, but there are a lot of challenges with it. But we do encourage there to be more reporter-owned firms in our state and in our country. So I definitely would encourage that, and we'd be happy to be a mentor to someone else who might be interested and answer any questions. So we'll put a link in in our description below, and you can contact us that way or visit our website, regalcourtreporting.com.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think with anything, there's anything new, you're trying something new. If you're going to do it in any industry, I think court reporting is probably a good one to try it in, because the costs for starting an agency now, I think it is more expensive to pay, for certain things like court reporters. Obviously, the rates have gone up, but everything's remote, or a lot of things are remote. So you don't have to have like a brick and mortar operation per se. So there's a lot of things with technology that makes it easier today than maybe when we started.
Yeah.
But there are going to be challenges, and you're not going to work any less, I don't think. But you might work different hours than if you were an employee where you had to work X hours a day. It's just, there's more freedom in that. And there's a ton of creativity that you get when you get to call your own shots and decide who you're going to work with and who you're not going to work with. And so I think that would be my final thoughts is there's challenges. The rewards are, in our case, they've been very good.
Yeah.
And they've let us build a family and build a business at the same time. So having said that, you want to talk a little bit about maybe our next episode and who you're going to have on and what the topic's going to be?
Well, I was thinking about inviting one of my colleagues, Molly Cooper, to join me. I haven't gotten a commitment yet, but I will. And we're going to talk about her last 5 years or however long, 4 years that she's been reporting. She has a great perspective of having a career beforehand. And also she's about to make the jump to real time. And so we can talk about real time and how to get prepared for that and set yourself up for success. So I'm looking forward to it.
Great. And on that note, I think what we'd love our listeners or viewers to do is if they've liked the show, to like it, to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and to be a follower. We're going to have some more updates as well about upcoming episodes. We're going to talk about a lot of different things in the court reporting space. I'm going to talk a little bit about business development, and if you wanted to have an agency, what are some of the things I've learned the hard way about getting clients and maintaining clients. And then we'll have on other people too that are just more general industry conversations. So stay tuned for that. We'll be back very soon. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.